Cool. So our first customer story that we wanted to share with you today is not a new one. If you have been a part of our community for the last couple of years, you would remember seeing Clover very, very early. I would say probably about 4 years ago. It was about 4 years ago. So the story of Clover's journey towards a modern industrial automation platform is quite a special one. So I'm going to ask Deon Korp to join me on stage from Clover. Deon, welcome. Thank you. How are you? You're welcome. Please, not on that one, but maybe, yeah, let's do that.
Hi.
All right, so talk us through the architecture. No. So Clover's journey
never seen that
started with
slide
us.
in my life.
You have never seen that slide? Well, then we've got a problem. So maybe just by way of introduction, if you can share your role, who you are, what you do, and yeah, I think the context will be helpful for people to understand.
Hi, my name is Deon Korp. I'm the engineering manager for all the electrical and control systems at Clover. Yeah, it's a lot. What else do you want to know? Where did we come from?
Kind of day-to-day role, your business, what do you do, your team, bit of context.
Yeah, so my team is located centrally, and we take care of all the standards and also make sure that projects get rolled out according to the standards. When the budget works, sometimes we get strong armed. But we also support the sites, and we have representatives in our team at every site.
Yeah, cool. So I'm going to maybe go to this slide before we get into technical detail. I thought this would be a good departure. I hope it is.
Yeah, so apologies for people who have seen it before at previous...
Very, very many years ago, many years ago. So maybe that's the place to start, is to understand why we spoke 4 years ago. Maybe we can start with that, kick off with that.
Yeah, a little bit of background. When I started working for Clover, we had little factories all over. So obviously, historically, dairy is quite an unstable product, so you processed it at source. So every town had a dairy. And then when you process dairy, then you have a byproduct, and you've got to process a byproduct. And later, with advances in technology, we started... It gets more stable, but we still had this legacy old factories. We came up with a project. The project was called Project Sincilla, where we consolidated these factories into 4 mega factories. And with that, obviously, it was a big job. There's some economy of scale goes with that. Obviously, we didn't just do it out of the goodness of our hearts. There's proper economic reasons.
And together with that, maybe you had to understand, cool, do we have the technology that supports part of those initiatives? And I think you actually spoke through this slide 4 years ago, which was your automation roadmap, that kind of talks through the strategic support required at the top based on those objectives and how it filters down to the technology. So we don't necessarily have to go through the details of the slide.
So obviously some of it's redacted in that slide. But what we did is we set of where we are and in an ideal environment, what do we want to do? So obviously when you're just coming up with contextual plans. And at the time we had very legacy technology, but you see the world evolving around you, walking around, you can do everything on your phone. So how cool would it be to stand next to a valve and open it instead of shouting, open the valve on the left, your left or my left? You just take your own phone and do it. Day-to-day technologies that can be useful in an environment. Just mobility in the center is one. Then web-based applications, because it's always an IT disaster to get approval to install this software on a guy's PC.
Shall we talk about security right now? No, we don't have to.
Security,
it's a big topic.
Necessary evil. Yeah.
So this was actually your slide that we spoke through 4 years ago, and why I think it was important to highlight is kind of based on these functional requirements that support the technology, which are pretty much the ones highlighted in yellow. You kind of identified the challenges and then the requirements from a digital infrastructure. I mean, the challenges, the reason it's called common challenges, but they're fairly common. I don't know if you want to talk through any of those.
Yes, very common. So with this big consolidation project, of course, we have to do some cost forecasting for budgeting purposes. You know, that 1.4 billion rand that we had to spend, half of it couldn't go into software licenses. And, you fall off your chair when you see what you actually want to do. You want to have an HMI next to every unit machine.
Yeah.
You add all of that up with certain legacy vendors, and it's scary. So at the time, it was a very, very good opportunity to have a look at, is the incumbent technology still fit for purpose? What else is out there?
And the cost is not
And it was
necessarily...
just good governance, actually.
Yeah, and the cost is not necessarily just about the cost at the time, but what is the total cost of ownership over X period? Yeah.
And engineering exercise. If you can speed matters up, because you have to consolidate factories, build new ones. You can't have a resource dedicated to right-click new. You have to have rapid techniques.
And complexity, I think, there's a segue into complexity with that, and I think the ease of use
We
was
did,
something you
and
thought about.
I think we discussed this a few years ago. We weren't really scared of complexity in the back end. I think I still use the example of your phone. A phone is not an easy thing. The guys at Apple and Google who write the software, it's difficult, but it's easy for the end user. So we weren't averse to taking on the complexity if we have to do it internally, but for the application, it must be easy.
Yeah.
And that contextual information played in there. We want the operator to just see what's relevant at the time.
And together with that, again, is obviously resource requirements and very often resource constraints. The ability to support those applications and those systems internally. That's a big consideration.
We have a small team, and luckily those components don't keep us busy for too long.
Okay, that's good.
It keeps running.
That's good, unless your antivirus is not turned off when you upgrade it.
And especially when your antivirus doesn't respect the exclusion.
All right, cool. So based on your technology requirements, we're going to go through these very quickly. We have a couple of more visual slides around some of the early conceptual visual ideas. But so the first requirement was capability, very simple, fit on existing PLC standards and infrastructure. Again, we don't necessarily want to orphan or isolate any of our existing infrastructure, whether it's software or hardware. Run a Microsoft's platform with the latest and greatest versions, and it needs to be a robust architecture with a variety of client devices and client types. That's it.
So obviously with the first one, I helped develop some of Clover's standards before I actually joined them, and you can't 3 years down the line say, we made a huge mistake, we're starting over.
Especially if you're not the one, you're the one who did it. Then
yes, exactly. It's a little bit of added incentive not to look like an idiot. And so when we decided to move to a new SCADA platform, of course, that must fit on top of what we already did.
Yeah.
And also it was as a proof of concept. We had to run it in parallel at the same time. And well, that worked perfectly.
Cool. You want to,
sorry, the rest is obviously
fairly straightforward.
We have, especially with the security, the IT guys are very averse to change because they want to vet everybody. And part of our challenges was always a massive evaluation of when there was a security update. And we just didn't want that to be a problem. And it hasn't been, actually.
Okay, fantastic. But you also have a very good relationship with your IT folks?
Yeah. From day to day. Within reason.
I've only heard very complimentary things. Speaking to them and speaking with you, it's been very complimentary. But
of course, we always have a focus on reliability and getting the job done, and they have a focus on security.
Absolutely.
So I think we have a good understanding that. I like to use the car analogy, saying yes, the car has to be safe, but we can't lock it so well that you end up walking to work.
That's a good point.
The security function cannot impede the core functionality.
It's a very good point. And I think some of what came out in the discussion 4 years ago around the topic of the collaboration, I'm guessing very soon it's not even going to be collaboration, it's going to be one team. But the collaboration between IT and OT is legacy IT tends to inhibit and be a barrier for kind of innovation, where more modern IT see themselves as enablers. So it may be a no, but it's not just a no, it's a no why and how can we help to make it happen.
Yeah,
and you guys
still have to get the job done. You can just help me to do
well.
it safely.
Yeah, you guys did that very well within your business, yeah. So some of, on the points of the requirements around capability, these are examples of how you kind of met that criteria around capability. Installed and connected to your controllers in minutes. I think you actually personally downloaded Ignition, I think at the time, connected a couple of things.
ELEV8 didn't exist at the time.
We didn't exist, correct, yeah. Accessed easily from any client devices and redundancy that works, that kind of straightforward.
Yeah. So on that, in the original architecture that we decided, we're still running it. We haven't made a change to it. So all of those research and deployment that we did is still applicable to this day.
Okay.
Which I think we did a good job, and the products are good.
Fantastic. Scalability, requirements around that, start small and expand. I think Agile was very much, from your point of view, it was a requirement from the beginning, whether it comes to tags, clients, how you deploy that. Again, tying in with that simple licensing model that does not require a precise forecast. In other words, depending on how you build out that Agile build, the licensing kind of doesn't change too much based on that. And that kind of makes it a scalable project.
That was actually one of the real frustrating points, and which was a big catalyst to going to the new SCADA system, was we had a small project to do, but it would have bumped us over a licensing tier. Now, it's very difficult for me to motivate a R500,000 bump in licensing just because we wanted to add one vessel. And those kind of forecasts is very difficult to do.
It is, yeah. And then very briefly, I want to get to the sexy stuff. There we go. Criteria met. I think unlimited tags, unlimited clients, that speaks to Ignition, I think. I'm guessing.
It's
I don't want to
unlimited.
say it, otherwise I'm biased. I don't want to say it.
It's obviously within reason. And we've been sitting on plans to split our biggest gateway into two when the time comes.
Okay.
But it's still running 500,000 tags, 80 prospective clients, about 100 device connections. And it works.
Okay.
So eventually I'll have to split it, but I thought it's going to happen long ago. So that unlimited, if you manage it well, it's fairly big.
Okay. You currently have multiple servers. I think you've got a redundancy as well. We can maybe share your no, we probably can't share your architecture. You've got multiple servers, redundant servers.
We did something that goes slightly against Ignition's official recommendations, but we have a physical server on site. That's our primary gateway, and obviously that works for low latency, and it's there, and it's kind of immune to WAN outages. But our redundant doesn't sit on site; it actually sits in our private data center in the head office.
And your Canary is central hosted,
central, yes.
Enterprise historian.
But with the store and forward capabilities of Canary, we've never had issues. It pushes data up, it buffers. We've had switched it off for a week, and then it sends all billion values in a few minutes up. Cool. It works.
Simplicity is the last one before we look at your sketches. The user interface, you very much wanted to, I don't think you read the handbook, but you very much had a high performance, situationally aware design in mind. If you are going to modernize, that's usually a good time to do it, keeping in mind that you want to make sure you don't leave behind any of your people that are not familiar with that kind of a design, especially operators. You want to make sure that everybody's aligned, but that was a very big requirement.
It is a jarring effect for them, because I believe if it's not green, it's not good. But yes, that's something that they got used to.
Okay. Reusable assets and templates, I think that's a given, standards. And then rapid rollout of an instance without redevelopment. So what you've actually done is, and why we don't have a specific system integrator partner with us on the stage today, I think the way that Deon and the team designed and built it made it easier for multiple system integrator partners to basically receive that configuration for deployment at multiple sites, wherever that may be.
Yeah, correct. So we developed the standards ourselves with our internal team, and then we partnered with multiple SIs concurrently. And those SIs who really just embraced it, they loved it. It was a rapid rollout. You didn't have to waste time for instantiating, and you can actually spend time fine-tuning and commissioning the system.
Cool. Fantastic. All right, the sexy stuff. I think it's sexy stuff.
My apologies. I didn't know he's going to use my screenshots.
All right, so these are some of the early contextual designs around, what do we want this thing to look at? So it's not final. In fact, we didn't necessarily want to share the final ones, if that's okay with everybody, because there were some, not necessarily IP, but there were some Clover specific bits in there. So Deon agreed that we can share his early conceptual mock-ups, if I can call it that, which were actually not sketches, as you can see. We made it sketches. But maybe to talk through it briefly, just to give an understanding of when we're talking about situationally aware or high performance, a couple of things we had in mind. So the first one is obviously a contextual dashboard, which I think is the bulk of that real estate.
Yeah, no, I think that's actually where operators get the most value for when they learn that. Just make sure that the correct thing's on the screen at the time. So if you're running a cleaning process, you don't really care about the totalized value. It's completely not applicable. And when you're running a charging operation, then you don't really care what the discharging units is at that specific time. And this dashboard, we've made it completely editable in runtime. We decided against making it user-based.
Maybe just explain editable in runtime.
Yeah, you don't have to launch a designer. You can click on that little pencil there, obviously with the right credentials, and put whatever you want. We have a handful of pre-developed widgets. Say at this stage, it might be relevant to see the output of that control valve. Put it on there.
Cool.
And we can do that. We generally only do that while we're commissioning, because that's when you realize what's important.
Yes.
If I need to look at it right now, the operator might get some value in it later.
Which aids a lot in saving time without having to then go back to the designer.
Yeah, you can do it straight from the operator station.
Yeah, cool. You've got a number 2 over there is a state diagram with a navigator, really just to know what's happening, kind of macro actions.
And know where you are, know where you can go to. So that's not properly illustrated there, but those little arrows, if they're thin, they're not applicable. If they're thicker, then that it is active, and if it's really bold, then it means an operator can command it to there. And then at number 3, obviously you can't really see the detail of it, but that's where we have our current step enumerations, but we inject live plant values in there. So instead of just saying I'm waiting for this timer, that timer actually times down in there, and you're waiting for that temperature. Can tell you what temperature you're waiting for and what the current value is. So, especially a timer, if some product's going to drain, how long is it going to be? By the time you open the PLC to see what it's in there, then it's finished. So now you know, you don't have to panic. It's in 5, 4, 3, it goes down. And then, of course, at the top there, it's just the different tabs. What we do is you can see those are similar units on the same time, see what's active, what's not active.
All right, and then this is pretty much a mimic, just with pop-up details, quick actions. It is number 5, I think. We can't see that on the screen right now.
Everybody always wants a mimic. It has to be there.
And again, your high-performance type design as opposed to the kind of more legacy type designs. It's becoming more popular. This was a non-negotiable for you. Yeah,
and it's just like, obviously you can see some orange there, but because that's just running in a simulation, and it's to show you that it's in simulation. But it's just that overarching principle of don't scream that everything is normal.
Yes, exactly. Kind of be aware when attention is drawn to something where it needs to be. Exactly. Cool. Very nice sketch that. You draw quite well, Deon. Your lines are very straight.
My numbers aren't straight.
So this is status table, auto-populating. Maybe explain
that's always something that you want to see what the status of all the EMs are and who's acquired it and what it's in, if it's an error. And we've always found that it gets neglected because the plant runs if you didn't configure that. But if you need to have some idea of what's wrong in an instant, if it's not there, then you have an issue. So this is just the capability of actually browsing the tags automatically in Ignition and building all this boring stuff out for you automatically. And what I didn't show there, if you expand one, it actually shows you what devices form part of that EM.
Okay,
so you can
and that's a drill down capability. Yeah. Very nice. Nice feature. A contextual alarm table. So in other words, not just an alarm table, but a contextual alarm table.
Yeah, because you don't want to see the whole plant. Queensborough is a big plant. It's got the 8 factories in the same site.
Was your first deployment Queensborough?
No, the first deployment was at PE, because we had a process running on our incumbent standard, which we can run in parallel. But then before we knew it, Queensborough had surpassed it by a factor of 10.
Okay.
But there, you don't want to be overwhelmed with alarms that aren't applicable. If I'm looking at the butter churn, I only want to see what's happening here. I really don't care about the cheese factory. Yeah.
And maybe kind of what does that configuration look like behind the scenes?
You just give it a starting tag path, and it'll just browse everything under that. And you can give it more than one.
This is a feedback table.
This is something that I should probably revisit because I don't think it gets used a lot. But we had it auto-populating with issues. So if you have an enumeration, instead of permanently have a description not configured, it actually logs to a database and say, please go and configure this description. And also, an operator can go and add whatever he wants. You can go and say, when I start up, the temperature control on this valve is not great.
Yep.
And later we might integrate the alarm notification or something. But
so
this was actually stolen from the Ignition Exchange, though.
Yes.
With very, very minimal changes.
So maybe
this is not my work.
maybe explain what the Ignition Exchange is.
Yeah. So the Ignition Exchange is a repository of user-contributed items and a lot of IA stuff too, which is really good inspiration to see this is something that I need. I see it as a very good starting point. Somebody did all the heavy lifting. I won't necessarily go and download an update 3 years down the line and expect it to fit. But this almost fit the bill perfectly.
This is
I think Travis made it.
Did Travis make it? Really? Travis? Well done. Not just the evangelist, also the engineer. A couple of other useful resources on the exchange. There is a machine learning model manager. There is an Eskom's push integrator, which is quite nice. It kind of just pulls the APIs.
We don't have load shedding anymore.
We don't have load shedding. It used to be a very popular one. It was actually Deon from Advances that built that one. Deon, it used to be useful. It's not anymore. It's a very cool API. Kind of essentially just an API call. There is a very nice ticket management system resources available on the exchange. So maybe check it out if you've never heard of the exchange. There's resources that's available for free. It's been vetted. It's been quality checked, and it does add a couple of very nice features to your application and makes you look good, like it made Deon look good.
And the final one is just an audit table, and I always like having that accessible to everyone. So when operators get bored in the night, they click around and they realize, whoa, these guys are recording every single click, but it makes everything easier. The retrospective investigations, who did what at what time.
Especially when there's a bunch of compliance involved and tracking involved. And maybe on the audit table, if you can provide some context in terms of what is actually tracked and logged. It is pretty much every click.
It is everything. And here we just filter it by what's useful, but we log everything that has a user action.
Cool.
And also it goes through the store and forward, so you don't even lose any data.
So this is a screen that we okay to show. This is kind of an actual example of what it looks like today.
That's just
pasteurizer view.
Yeah, it's just got the widgets, and something that I quite like is those little bars at the bottom.
Yes.
And once we train up the operators to see, so that's just a PID controller. So that thin little sliver in the middle is actually the error. So if you look from across the plant and you see just thin lines, you know that every single control loop's in control. It doesn't exactly tell you what the set point and what the output is, but if you see that grow to the top, you've got a positive error. Grow to the bottom, it's minimal. So if you look at it from far, you see that kind of that human eye with that vernier acuity. We can spot a straight line very easily, and it just tells you everything's cool.
I like that. It's very simple but so functional. Maybe in terms of design, very much focused around control, operations. There is data store, central data store happening, long-term data store happening in the Canary. What is the data strategy, or not data strategy, but reporting that's supported by a data strategy? What has that been like over the last couple of years?
So I'll be dead honest to say that's our weak point, and that is something that we have to put a lot of attention to. So product traceability is a focus area for future, but we first wanted to enable it, not paint ourselves into a corner.
Okay.
And now that we are more than halfway there with the plant, it's time to jack up that capability.
Okay, from a reporting point of view...
We do use flow software, but it's always kind of been left to the side, so we don't have a central strategy, and that's something that my boss is pushing us towards. So if something is important for one plant to see, it's probably important for all plants to see. So,
would you say it requires a certain level of kind of digital maturity or fluency even to get to that level of reporting?
It definitely does, but I think it also requires a big plant operational knowledge, and maybe that's why we've been shying away from it, because we have the technical knowledge, but we don't always know exactly what's important for the manager to see.
The subject matter experts.
Exactly.
Okay.
And it's also difficult for a guy to tell you what he wants if he's never seen a good example of it.
Yeah. I think it's a very cool application, Deon. Anything to look forward to? What's next for you and the team?
Well, I'd love to rip and replace. I know you said it's not a good idea. That's what I want to do. We sit with quite a large install base of obsolete equipment.
Okay.
Unfortunately, nobody's swimming in money at the moment. The economy is a little bit down, especially if you're in a consumer product. But the next step is to get rid of that old stuff.
Okay.
And I'd like every single HMI screen to look the same, for an operator to almost be transplantable, to know what his capabilities are here.
Okay.
And not being that situation where, oh, we have to make a change to a product. Is it on the new software? No problem. Is it on the old software? Oh, yes. It's going to be difficult.
Well, it is a journey. I mean, it's been 4 years. Your first install was pretty much 4 years ago, 2020?
I think we commissioned the first new plants in about 2020.
So maybe that's a good learning for everybody involved. You know, we've got this isn't a journey that happens overnight. It's a long process. You're getting to the point now where you're looking at some of the kind of more data cleansing, contextualization kind of elements to make it information 4 years in. So it's a long journey.
It is.
But I think it's a fantastic application. And we've got Deon, thank you. We're out of time. We have 1 minute. Does anybody maybe have a question for Deon right now? Or any comments, feedback? Cool, not cool? I think it's an amazing journey and application. Nobody? Okay. If there are any questions, this may be a question over here. Sorry, do we have a... No? Oh, we don't. Sorry, they're all up here.
Did you guys have a SCADA system already in place that you replaced with Ignition?
We didn't replace
maybe
anything.
Maybe the question, sorry, did you have an existing SCADA in place, and did you replace it with Ignition?
So we didn't replace it, not yet. It is on the roadmap. We just stopped investing in it. So what it was running and looking at, it's still there, but we didn't add anything. All of the new, so the plants we moved and the plants that we rebuilt fresh was all built on Ignition. So we just decided, we are actively divesting from it, and also we only have one site that still runs on the legacy historian. The rest we've all migrated to feed into our central Canary.
So it's kind of a balance between the new site was the easy one, but the legacy one's doing it over time.
Yeah, we just don't want to add to it, because then we just make life more difficult in the future.
Good question. Any other questions? There was a question, I think. I thought I saw my hand. Cool. Deon, thank you very much. Thank you for sharing. It's very intimidating being up here. So.